and Jimmy. Comic Vision Man.
Well, just checking out these chairs.
Thank you, Seth.
Oh, look at you. You're the other host now.
Yeah.
There we go.
We get to be the heads of the table. I don't even want to know the questions you would come up with.
Do we need to start talking about our makeup regimens? I feel like we're on a talk show or a beauty regimen.
yeah.
I feel like on a morning talk show, we talk about our exercise or
We're going to do makeup.
How do you wash your face in the morning?
Beaver oil, strictly beaver oil.
Don't.
All right, so I always like to open this up with a little icebreaker. Now, everybody, you all play a varying degree of different characters that we all love and adore. And in a hypothetical, fantastical world where these characters came to life, and you were hosting a party, a banquet, a bash, if you will, and you had to invite these characters, which of these characters would you invite, and how do you think that party would go?
Was that a question for us? Oh, wait. So I'll let you guys talk.
If there was a
I play a lot of quiet characters, so it would be just kind of a, I don't know, an awkward party where people sit around and ask where the bathroom is or something.
I would not invite your characters to my party. Sorry.
I know, that's fine.
I think Chris would have an interesting party. He'd have a lot of things going on.
It'd be very grouchy. It would be a very grouchy party.
Wow, most of the characters I play wouldn't come to your party. You know what I mean? Like, they just, you could invite them, but they're not going to come.
Yeah. Actually, most of your characters would have to come to my characters' parties because most of our characters are romantically involved.
That is true. That is very true.
True.
Zora would come up there with a beard. But you wouldn't invite Yamcha because he'd pass out and die by the end of the party.
Most of my characters would be in charge of the party. Or if you invited me and I didn't think it was running well, I would fix everything.
Most of my characters
Yeah.
would murder everyone at the party.
Really? Yeah, like a murder party, murder party. Yeah.
I'm still processing characters. I can't wrap my head around this. Like, I'm
I think
thinking
Hikaru
Goku. I mean, Goku would be there for all the food.
Yeah.
But, I don't know what you do.
If you just be in the corner telling jokes.
Then you got Dr. Crowler, and you got a yellow floaty guy. I'm trying to figure out how it's all going to work.
It would just be a very talkative party.
Yes.
Dude, who's trying to nail to the party?
You know-
keep trying to merge with everybody.
My party, I play a lot of people with like some crazy backstories, so mine could be like a therapy party.
Don't invite the parents of anybody that you are.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so they could all, really get in touch with their...
Are therapy parties a thing? Because if they're not, now I won't.
Yeah!
I think we just started therapy parties.
All right. We're partied out. All right, everybody. So, out of curiosity, I'm going to break this down. I want to ask a few questions to you guys individually, then maybe a few group discussions, and see if you guys bounce off each other, and we'll go from there. Something that I was interested in, Colleen in particular. I know you got your start by going to a bunch of auditions with your roommate that worked at Funimation at the time.
That is half true.
Give me the full truth, please. All of us. We all want to know.
Actually, zero parts of that are true. I was friends with Laura Bailey, but not yet roommates with Laura Bailey. And she brought me up to the studio to watch her record one day. And that was kind of her way of getting me in the door. That was her. She was doing a good, friendly thing of bringing me in so that I could get some work. And Chris Bevins was directing her, so he threw me in the booth and had me do a little bit. And that was the first thing I did at Funimation. So it was just coming up and watching her one day.
Interesting. Sean.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like when I look at him and when he talks, I just want to raise my hand and give him my energy.
Spirit bomb.
Like everybody just needs to give his energy.
Broker.
The man himself. Was it nostalgic for you at all with this new video game that just came out, Kakarot?
That's a good. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Just out of curiosity, was there any type of nostalgia recording this video game that starts from the beginnings of Z and then onward? Because we're seeing things that haven't been reported in a while.
Yeah, one of the things about nostalgia, though, is a lot of times you have to have a lot of time pass. So on the one hand, yes, I did experience some nostalgia that I did not expect. And the other hand, I'd already been told the story through various and sundry versions of games and or television shows for years, so I was intimately familiar with it, which actually helped me, because these video game recording sessions, we tend to crank through them. We want to do high quality, but there's always really strict deadlines. And so it was, having done the story over and over, there were times where I was relying on nostalgia, relying on things I remember to try to accurately recreate what we had done on Z or Kai, so that you would have that same level of emotional impact, because we didn't have time to say, oh, wait, hang on, there's that scene, the Super Saiyan 3 transformation, let's go and watch it on Kai real quick. I think I did watch a couple of clips for reference, just to, bring it, but yeah, I did, oddly enough, and I have started playing the game, which I do play a lot of the Dragon Ball games, but I tend to play like the fighting ones, like I play Fighter Z a lot, and I really enjoy it, even. So for guys who have been doing this forever, it means if you've never played, you're really gonna enjoy it. I'm really surprisingly, and I also like to interrupt Gohan all the time. So because we hit the next button, it's like, hey, you want to get attention to the next one? And I'm not trying to do anything. It's no slide. It's just funny to interrupt. Dude, it's interrupt Gohan, or have Gohan interrupt me. Because if you hit the button, it goes to the next one. So I don't know. It's a lot of fun for me. Yeah, it was nostalgic in its own unexpected way. Yes, for sure.
What about you, Chris? With Kakarot and you got to play with Piccolo for so long. He's like a main character for like part of the game, and that was awesome.
Yeah, the toughest part about the game though was having to record basically the entire series all within a few weeks' time, and it was exhausting.
Yeah, that was tiring. That was tiresome. Yeah.
And plus we were working on that game at the same time we were working on other stuff too, and it was completely exhausting. I think for me, Sean and I had about an equal amount of hours in the game.
More because of Piccolo and stuff. I had like 30 hours in it.
Okay, I was like something like around 40 hours with all these characters, and and we not only had to do all those epic scenes, and we didn't want to kind of phone them in, so we worked really hard to make them as awesome as we could. And then you had to do an entire massive folder full of all the screens and stuff like that. So for each character, you have to go through give me 10 small fighting reactions, 10 large ones, runs. 10 on fire, 10 handful reactions, and every single intro that you could have between every other character. So it was pretty awesome. And then I went and finally played it. I found out you can fish with Goku's tail, and I was sold.
That's a fun sequence.
It's an awkward looking.
Or if you don't have tail, he just magically puts one in his.
I immediately took a video of it and sent it to Sean. I'm like, this is awkward because in order to feed yourself in the game, Goku can
turns around.
He pops his tail back into his butt again, and he leans his butt and then sticks it in the water. And it's the most awkward looking thing. It was as awkward as I just made it look right there.
Yeah, it's awkward, but interesting.
All right. Monica.
Yeah.
I read something and I want to ask you about it because I think it's really interesting. You used to and I hope this is right, forgive me if it's not, but you used to translate and imitate voices for your brother when you were younger. And do you think that was, I guess, the beginnings of you being interested or...
In anime?
Yeah, anime or just the craft of voice acting?
Yeah, I've been acting since I was 12, but nobody bothered to tell me that voice acting was a thing. They're like, yeah, on camera and screen and stage. And I'm like, oh wait, I can make a living as an actor with just my voice, and I can wear my pajamas? Yeah. But yes, my brother fell in love with the show in Spain when we were visiting family called Las Bolas de Dragón. And he fell in love with it and didn't speak Spanish very well, so he would wake me up at 7 o'clock in the morning, every morning, so that I could translate live to him. So I played every character in Dragon Ball before I ever was a part of Dragon Ball.
Who was your favorite at the time?
Piccolo.
Yeah?
Yeah, we even had a cat named Piccolo.
I'm a big Piccolo fan too. I have a Piccolo autographed action figure Chris gave me in 2002.
See?
Yeah.
Who would have known?
He's a cool guy.
So yeah, I do think that was
such a great...
Yeah, I think it was the opening of the window, definitely, because he became a huge Dragon Ball fan, and of course it took the show 3 years, I think, before it came to the U.S. And when it came to the U.S., he was still interested in it, but then he started getting into other stuff, like Ghost in the Shell and Akira and things that I was like, oh, okay. So it's not just this one fight kind of genre. There's other genres. So that's when I really started to learn what anime was, and then realized, oh, I've been watching this my whole life. I just didn't know that Speed Racer was anime, or Thundercats was anime, or Voltron. I had no idea. Yeah, I would say that definitely opens that door.
That's cool. I like that. It's weird.
Yeah, that's great.
David, I think there's a fascination with your character, particularly amongst females, with Shoto. There's a certain degree of just fascination and desire.
Not just with the ladies.
That's true. Where do you think that stems? Does it reverberate into your own life? People ask you to say things from time to time in certain voices.
Are you asking if I'm desirable in real life? Because, you know, some people think that, but not everyone. Yeah, no, I don't know what it is exactly about.
There's a lot of stuff out
When was the last time you were desired? You know, just tell us about that.
Are we doing the therapy party now?
No.
Go on back.
I was just at that premiere the other
there. I think you're desired right now. Look at all these people. Don't you desire them? Look at them.
What is happening right now?
I couldn't tell you what it is about Todoroki specifically. I think it's a combination of things, but yeah, sometimes there's a shot, I'll see him come on screen, I'm like, oh, okay.
That's a very attractive high schooler.
Yeah, that's desirable. I know.
What are you doing?
You like it. The girls like
I think
He's repressed. Girls want to fix him.
Yeah, see, we really should be
And
asking
boys.
the women on this panel. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't give you like a real reason for what his. I think it's a combination of who he is, where he came from, his struggles, his backstory, the way that he almost treats himself. You know, I think that he's really hard on himself. I think is sometimes stuck in his own head, stuck in his own thoughts. I think in season 3 you see him fail the provisional licensing exam for that exact reason, that he just gets wrapped up in what he thinks he needs to do, and I think that people can relate to that, honestly. I think people relate to that internal struggle, and I don't think we really talk about that as much. So yeah, I mean, I think some of Todoroki's most powerful time on screen, he doesn't say anything, and I think there's something to that as well.
I think you skillfully dodged applying that to you.
It was well done.
Yeah, skillful dodge. That's my.
So, how is it being hot? Is that good? Is that working out for you? It's so much fun to watch you squirt.
This feels weird.
I'll pull it away.
So when was the first time you realized you were pretty hot? You know, like
Is it hard that a lot of them are younger girls that are finding you attractive?
This is awesome.
Thank you for this.
You're welcome. I actually have a question. I have another question for you, and it regards a baby.
Uh-oh.
This is Colleen.
I was going to say, if it involves a baby.
My turn.
I think there was a point in time where somebody, a fan, asked you to sign their child, or their diaper, or something like something
Yes.
set up with Colleen. I like your voice. Sign my kid. Like,
Yes.
was that a real thing?
I don't even know that that's a one-time only thing.
That was multiple things.
Yeah, I've definitely been asked to sign children.
And I've signed a birth certificate.
One of them was a little baby, and I said no, but I will sign its diaper. So I signed the baby's diaper.
Don't throw it away.
I didn't ask questions about what was in the diaper, and perhaps I should have, but
Is that the weirdest thing you've ever had autographed?
no.
Really?
Yeah, no.
All right.
I've signed you've got to have signed weirder things than I have.
Have you really signed a birth certificate?
You've signed what?
Pen with a tiny pen. I got a really tiny, use a magnifying glass.
Was that all they had on them? Just the pen?
They wanted a penny sign, so I signed it.
Like suddenly you're a Japanese artist.
Yeah, no, I did
with
it. It
the rice.
turned out exceedingly well. I was very surprised with myself. I was like, wow, how'd I do that? And then I looked at it, I'm like, I kind of want this, so I had to get it.
I've signed condoms.
Whoa!
Like,
In a package.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, so not out of the bag.
And like vintage Mustang, somebody drove up a vintage Mustang and had us sign it.
I signed a
Like
GTR.
that is just painful.
I signed a GTR I went to a watch thing, and they had a bunch of Dragon Ball GTRs out there, and they had to go through black GT. I think I signed a steering wheel.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they'll it's amazing. Like it's such a
Wow. Okay. Laura, so on to a more serious question that I find fascinating. You guys have been doing what you do for multiple years now, decades now. And you've brought to life so many characters that all of us have grown to love and enjoy throughout the years. Did you think you'd be where you are now from where you started? I mean, I know things were rocky, especially like for you guys with like Funimation and the salary that you guys were on, and you at times you were basically working for free or willing to. How can you just where you are now to where you where it began?
I mean, I think none of us really expected anything when we were working on the game. Because I don't think we ever understood what it was we were even doing or how much it affected people.
At least not in the beginning, yeah.
At the very beginning, I mean, I just thought, I'll be working. That's cool. Sounds like a weird job. I'll go do that. And I didn't really think it would. I mean, I would have never guessed that 20 years from then, we'd still be sitting up here talking to people, that they'd be at motion pictures, premieres that we're going to.
Yeah, and have movies in the theater, in the box office.
Continuing.
I'll tell you,
Yeah.
one thing that has been pretty amazing over the years, though, is that when we all first started this, and I'm sure you all felt the same way, because these guys on the far end, Monica and David here, they were from this other land that we didn't even know existed, and then finally we were like, what? They done anime somewhere else too? And then we all met one another, but we do the same thing. It was so weird. But I'm sure you experienced this too. For the longest time, I think we all felt like we're just putting the English voices on Japanese cartoons. That's it. It didn't. I mean, sure, it meant stuff to people at conventions and stuff, but it wasn't really ever validated in Japan. But lately,
I
because
didn't
of our
hear about
culture,
in Japan until we were on the Resurrection F tour.
It's true.
Yeah, I finally found out what they thought of it.
but lately, because American companies like Funimation have been interfacing very closely with Japanese companies, more so now than ever before, we're meeting our Japanese counterparts and the producers on the shows, and they're approving the cast in some cases, and they've come and they've really said, they've told us before, you guys are the cast in America, and we love it. So
I think
it felt
my
good.
problem was I took it too seriously. I was going to do every screen different, and as far as the expectation where we would be, on the one hand I didn't expect it, but on the other hand it feels like, well, duh. I was so naive. It's like show business, of course, it'll be big. Things are big. I didn't realize how many shows fail, and so on the one hand it's like I'm surprised, but on the other hand I'm like, well, duh, that's awesome. It's kind of a naive perspective, but I'm not surprised that it's had this, but at the same time I'm surprised. If that makes sense. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it yet.
I still remember that feeling of being able to quit my waitressing job.
Yes.
That feeling of I guess this is steady now. I've been doing this for a while and I'm making enough that it's actually getting in the way of my waitressing job. They wanted me to quit.
I was a terrible waiter. Were you
I
a good
was a
waiter?
terrible waitress.
Terrible.
I would be in the back making crossword puzzles for my fellow servers while my people were out there going, "Where's my ketchup?"
Yeah, I was exactly the same way. And I never get tips. I was terrible. I forgot the food all the time.
I actually quit because I got one of those reviewers, one of those secret shoppers that came in and they got me. And they told everybody at the break room, not that it was me, but that somebody got this 50% or whatever on their secret shopper, and then they called me in later and they were like, "It was you. You should quit. You don't work here anymore."
Wow.
You're right, I don't work here anymore. I keep giving away my shit.
Where it was? I went to Steak and Ale, which we refer to as Stuck in Hell, and then the Olive Garden, which I rather enjoyed.
I worked at the Olive Garden too. That was my first
Did you
week
learn
at
that
the
song?
job.
How do we make till the money we make, we worship you?
Oh, no, we didn't do that.
We had to sing that song. It's like really
They probably just made you sing it.
Yeah.
I worked at Rainforest Cafe.
Oh, no, that's a
That place
fun
is
one.
cool.
That's a great one.
Chris delights in reminding me of coming to
got,
watch
animatronics.
me.
I used to go visit her.
He was the worst.
I think you took me to go visit her.
The worst.
And it's only because it was only because that place just, and I have to go to it now because I have kids, and so the torture's back on me again. But I was like, wow, what a place! I worked at Steak and Ale. That was my first job ever.
Really?
Yeah, I was a busboy there.
That's so funny. We crossed paths so many times. We both went to the same college, not at the same time, and just barely overlapping. That, and then we were both in Texas, and then we almost had the same music major. It was really crazy.
And now you've been on the same show for what, 20 years?
That's amazing. That's crazy.
Wow. David, I was really curious with Orphan.
Mm-hmm.
That now if anybody doesn't know, Orphan was one of your very first voiceover gigs.
It was my first.
It was like the
my
very
first ever anime role. Yeah.
And how was that experience for you?
So it's kind of to piggyback up. Or go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just want to know, what did you learn from your very first role as that character, and how did it help you develop your characters that you have today and hone your craft? And was there a lot of fear going into that the first time?
When I saw voiceover when I was in college as a way of like, hey, I really love this. I really want to act. I want to do this for a living. How do I diversify my talent and try and do this? And so I pursued voiceovers from a commercial perspective at first, and then I got this audition for what my agent said at the time was a cartoon, and I was like, really? In Houston? A cartoon? Okay. And they were like, yeah, we don't know what it is, just go. And so it was Orphan, and that was, this was back, there were paper and a music stand, and it was the lead role, and I booked it, and I really learned, on the job what anime was. I mean, I had watched anime, a bit here and there. Again, like I said, not knowing that it was anime or what that meant, but I really learned it on the job. And he was a sorcerer and big shouting spells, and 18 years old and kind of cocky, and I was a bit in over my head. I felt confident about my ability to act it, but I didn't know how to really channel that into voice acting per se, or how to create this character just with my voice. So I had a lot of help from Stephen Foster, who was the director. I became good friends with the engineer, who was really helpful. So I tell people a lot, if you go and you watch like the first 6 episodes of that, I'm really like learning what this is, And it was the foundation for the rest of my anime career, really. I don't get to play roles as much like Orphan anymore, but Orphan's back, and Funimation is dubbing it. So 20 years, I'm returning to that role, and it's a little nerve-wracking just because I'm like super invested in it, because it was my first role, probably more than anyone else's, probably even more than the audience is. But I'm like, oh yeah, can we do that again? And then
that's fun to get to go back and like do it all over again and like do it right.
Amazing.
Like, feel like I know what I'm doing now. I have the confidence.
Yeah. And it's different. The animation's different. The story's being told in a different way. So it can't be completely the same, but yeah, it's a ton of fun. I mean,
I just never knew they made an anime out of Annie.
Yeah, I know. I play Annie.
Congrats.
The worst.
Yeah, and Daddy Warbucks. I play both. Yeah.
Do you guys feel like you're still, even today, with where you are in your careers, with the characters that you've been portraying, do you still feel like you're learning as you go on? Do you ever hit a character where you're like, oh,
yeah, actually,
I never knew I could?
What's weird is, for me, I don't know about you guys, but for me, you just inspired me to tell this story. You can get set in your ways, and you can get, you develop a skill set, you know what you're doing, right? And so when you first start, you're learning a lot of stuff all the time, just like a baby or whatever. And then eventually, the learning moments get lesser and lesser because you start getting better and better at what you do. And I did a session for a Sony game, I guess last month, and they had me mic'd up in a different way without a large diaphragm condenser. It was almost like a mocap session, but without mocap. And one of the things I noticed as an actor, it was a big learning moment for me in the sense that they really wanted these naturalistic reads, and I tend to specialize in character voices, and I tend to be pretty over the top with stuff. So we really wanted this Japanese accent, very realistic reads. I can't talk about the name of the game, obviously, but because I was standing and I didn't have a script in front of me, they had a giant screen on the wall, and I had like 10 feet to move around me, and the mic was on my forehead on the cap, so I had a really amazing freedom. It was like really, and I noticed that when one of the directors said, why don't you just do some gestures when you're calling out, just move around a little bit. And I noticed, like, energetically for me, the energy I put into voice acting split off into my body, and all of a sudden my reads got really naturalistic because some of the energy was diverted to, I was playing a soldier, so I was telling troops to do this or do that. And it totally I was like, whoa, first of all, I love not having a giant mic in front of my face, even though I love mics, I love electronics. And secondly, having the mic right here and not in front of me, being able to move around, I told the director, like, this is like a huge, so now in my home studio, I'm trying to set it up to where I can just always block out everything, block out the scene physically, because I didn't come from a theater background like a lot of these guys did. I started classical music, and then Dragon Ball was my first audition, and then I learned about voice acting through grinding and trial and error. So yeah, the moments come fewer and far between as you get better and better, but I love those epiphany moments where you're like, whoa, a new tool? I hadn't thought of that.
That sounds terrifying.
What? To be
to
like,
suddenly not have the mic,
yeah,
not have the headphones,
it was very
not have it
strange.
feel the same.
Oh yeah.
That
It was very strange. The best part though is they had a Japanese translator. They wanted the accent to be exactly right. So the best part was anytime I got a word pronounced wrong, all I had to do was look at her because the mic's on my forehead, and she would talk to me, and it was mic'd right on my forehead into my ear. So it was like she was whispering into my ear. So I'd say, did I say that word right? She'd go, say it like this. Then she'd say the word, and I'd repeat it. She'd say it, and I'd repeat it, and then I'd go. Sony does not mess around. They keep a accent person in the booth with you to make sure, from Japan, at least for this show.
They'll stop you every time. Like, hey, no, do it again.
Yeah, they'll stop you, do it again, do it right. They'll compliment you if you do it great. I mean, either one or the other. So that was a really eye-opening experience for me. To how because it represented itself energetically. That's what was weird about it. I could just feel everything. It was a weird thing. It was like learning to ride a bike again. It was really strange. So I don't know if you guys have.
It's nerve-wracking when you've got someone in the room who does.
Well, she's
that.
behind me, yeah, but yeah.
Or just even in the can. Like I worked on a game where we had to do British accents, and they Skyped in the client, and one of the clients was from this region in the UK, and would say like, this word should be, and I usually feel confident in it, but it's also nice to have someone there who can affirm you and also go, that's not exactly right.
Also, you're not offending, the tricky part about accents, especially in today's climate, is, and I had this problem even when I was living in New York 10 years ago, sometimes they don't care, what your ethnicity is, and sometimes they're very particular about it. And my fear as an actor is I never want to offend if I'm doing whatever accent. And the problem is you'll run into where they'll like, well, do just kind of the accent. I'm like, yeah, but now it sounds like I'm doing a bad accent.
Right.
And you really want to commit to the accent, but when you really commit, sometimes it's less intelligible. So you got to find that fine line because the accent's too thick, but it's for an English-speaking audience, and still not offend. So having someone from Japan who's bilingual in the booth was a real, okay, I know I'm not offending by saying this word this way or this style or whatever. And that was, was really important to me.
Yeah. That can be tricky when a client asks for like a legit accent, so you hire someone from that country. Like for instance, in one of the Dragon Ball movies, they wanted some of the French accent. So I brought in this French dude, except you couldn't understand anything he said. Like, so I even remember the line because we had to do it like 400 times. He's supposed to say, "What is this? A pig?" And he was, I'm like, I did not understand that at all. Can you please do it? I'm like, that sounds like was a pea to me. Like, please do it again. And it's tricky.
Yeah,
I think
that's hilarious.
The thing about dubbing, and the thing that is difficult for people at the start, but then so rewarding, like once you've been doing it for a while, is that the technique of it is a little tricky to get used to. Like hearing the tones in your head, like they beep you in, or in some studios they don't at all. But like there's a lot of like technical stuff. Sorry, in Houston they don't use the same exact method that we do in those people in the.
We're very salty about it.
Yeah. But once you get used to the technique of all of it, then actually it does become a lot more fun, because once you can look at it and not have to worry about all this other technical stuff, you really get to do what actors want to do, and that's bring the most to the reads and the character that you possibly can. So that means like if you see your character sit down in a scene, normally you'd be worried about just like trying to make it match the mouth movements, but once that's automatic, then you're like, oh, how can I make it sound like he's kind of sitting down during the middle of that line, or like how would he like. You can really tweak some subtle things in it, and that's when dubbing becomes fun, because once you get good at it, you get to hear all the music and the sound effects, and you get to see the finished product right in front of you, and you get to be in that world playing those characters, and that's better than any other voice acting out there, frankly.
Yeah.
Great.
That was beautiful. I was captivated. Is there anything about the job at this stage in the game for any of you that makes you nervous anymore? Anything give you anxiety? Anything like?
I can tell you what makes me nervous, and I'm working on a paper on it right now. So I'm worried about AI for a AI ethics conference. So basically, I heard some AI algorithms from an algorithm that was really good at doing narration, and I started thinking, they're gonna get good at it's. I'm gonna try to fight for my job, right? I'm gonna be automated, right? So, and honestly, in all seriousness, I don't jest anyone who's losing their job due to automation. That's got to be a very difficult thing. So I'm very fearful for myself. So I talked to a lawyer, then I talked to these guys who work for SpaceX. I know these like computer genius guys, and I said, hey, what could we, copyright my voice as an organ, and that that is a biological construct that waveforms coming out of it cannot be put into an AI to replicate my voice in the future, regardless of whether or not I own it. Because Funimation and Toei own my voice in association with Goku. So once they record it, they can do whatever they want with it. But what I'm trying to do, I talked to this other guy, and he's like, well, we're doing an ethics conference in Hawaii. We're going to write a paper on this, me and this other computer genius, and you're going to be a co-writer on it to talk about ethics and the usage of AI from the point of voice replication. So I'm worried about AI taking my job in the future. That's what I'm working on.
What if they could preserve your consciousness, though, and they could just ask you?
Exactly. I like
Dr.
that.
Giro.
It's just your head, like Simpsons.
Exactly. I love that.
Bring you into the booth.
So as long as your brain.
As long as I get permission, I don't mind. But I just don't want it to where, like, you know, they just take all my recorded work, stick it into an AI, and I'm out of a job. They go, oh, I hired the Sean AI. Well, he's free. You know, and I don't need that.
I absolutely think that's going to happen. They're going to find a way, not with our voices, but they're going to find a way to replicate.
Oh,
the
they're
human
good at
voice.
alliteration right now because it's an
Yeah.
algorithm that you input data into it and then it can make mouth pops, clicks, and this happened. I listened to this like a couple of years ago. So that deep learning and AI, it's going to get. And once you get quantum chips going, then you got a whole nother
Voice
level.
acting won't be a thing after a while.
Yeah, it'll just be.
I don't know, you guys. I still get those calls from like the IRS. It's like, please call this number to do this.
The IRS can't afford the things we're talking about. If you get a call from Elon Musk, it's going to be a fake voice.
I still feel like there has to be like some feeling. There has to be some purpose behind it. If it's just a voice talking, that's great for narration. But if you're playing a character,
It's tricky. Well, how are you
I
going
think
to
they're
direct
going to get
AI?
there. I think they're going to get there.
Now I'm scared.
So,
Big shock.
You
They've
might
already
It's
talked
ahead of
about
the
it.
curve, I don't know,
They're already working on that,
It's
on
gonna be
precisely that.
after we're dead.
Well, certainly
Oh,
after we
okay.
retire.
Then they can resurrect me all they want.
I just learned something. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't know about that. That's crazy. Reasonably so. What about you, Chris? Anything make you nervous on the job anymore?
He doesn't
Anything
ever
that-
get nervous.
He doesn't seem like the type. That's what I'm
I don't know,
curious. Like, is there anything?
the only thing that has become exciting and also stressful is that we do get to hear immediate feedback from the work that we're doing. Before, when we were working on this, it might, like, there were times in Dragon Ball where it was years before we even saw what we even did.
Social media.
But now, like, literally sometimes like less than a week later, you get feedback on what you're doing. So there is a little bit of stress about like making sure you do the best possible work. But man, I don't know. Like I actually was thinking about donating my voice afterwards. I'm not even worried about it. Like, you and I are thinking this opposite thing. I was thinking about like donating my voice. I'm done with it. Like I want to make my voice into an AI so that my voice can live on as some.
As long as you license it, then you don't have to work anymore. You just get residual right there. Just send your AI to work, and you get. Let's see, that's
The only thing I am worried about is if I do donate my voice, it's going to just end up on Pornhub all the time.
Like instead of Alexa, it's just, hey Chris, open the lights, or like open the.
That'll be fun.
Monica, as far as portraying Bulma goes, right? Yeah. What do you think she has to go through dealing with Vegeta? Do you think she has to deal with a lot of trial and tribulation, being married to the Prince of All Saiyans?
I think that she does have to deal with her a fair amount, especially because let's not forget Trunks. He's a handful too, so she's got her hands full. But she's a strong lady, and
She's scary.
Yeah. And I think as we've seen in Super, every time she opens her mouth, everybody's afraid, right? They're all like, oh god, oh god. So I really think that while Vegeta is probably a lot of headaches, I have no doubt that she puts him in his place very easily.
Yeah, Vegeta's Bulma's the only thing Vegeta's afraid of.
Yeah.
Like,
And as we saw in the one episode of Super, apparently Krillin is terrified of me too, because all the villains showed up in me. It's like, all these villains and then Bulma. I was like, what is that? Oh, he's terrified of me. I kind of love that.
Who's scarier, Chi-Chi or Bulma?
Chi-Chi.
Chi-Chi.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Chi-Chi's very
At least Bulma has like a fun side. You know, she's
I don't know, man. Is she scarier or does she just yell more? Because
That's true. She might just be more aggressive, whereas Bulma has the means to mess stuff up. She could.
she has technology. She creates
And money.
and money.
she also just doesn't care sometimes. I think that's what Vegeta likes so much about her. I think that's what guys like about a lot of girls is when they pretend not to care about you. So
At least when you're not there, she does. She does care about him. We see
She
it a
does.
lot. It's just that when they're together, every once in a while, they don't seem like they're together.
Chris, we were talking last year about your kids and them watching Dragon Ball Z and your other shows, and I don't recall asking, so I'm curious now. How do they feel about My Hero? Do you think they can relate more to My Hero more
Perfect
so
question right now.
Dragon Ball Z?
it's funny you ask that because I literally just took my daughter Hero to the premiere just like 2 days ago. Or was that last night? Wait, 2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how this week has been. And they've only seen 2 episodes of My Hero Academia because I keep trying to make them watch it. But with kids, as you parents understand, like you can't force them to like anything necessarily. The more you like force things on them, the more they're just going to hate it. However, Hero loved the movie. She absolutely loved the movie. And I asked her, I was like, so what characters do you like? What are your favorite characters? Because this is the first time, because she hadn't watched enough to kind of meet all the class. And the first thing out of her mouth was like, I like the girl that can make tools that come out of her body.
Yay!
So I was like,
I've been chasing behind Hero liking me for a long time.
I was like, that's awesome. She's like, and she really, really liked Momo. That was the first character that came out of her mouth. She goes, oh, and also the main guy and like All Might, of course, but like, she really liked Momo, which I was really like happy with.
Personality, though. If you think about Momo's personality and Hero,
Yeah, she's kind of type A with a little
Very
bit
much
of-
so.
Yeah.
Hero likes to make the rules. She likes to like make sure that everyone's doing what
But
they're
I love
supposed
how
to be.
Nova just throws a curveball in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude.
I
My younger
love
daughter.
that.
Nova's
Because I'm not type A,
Bakugo.
so Nova's like, what's
A
it?
little more Bakugo.
She's a little more Bakugo, but also just doesn't care at all. She just doesn't even care.
She's Jiro.
Yes.
she also looks like Chris as a little girl.
Poor
Like, exactly
thing.
like
True.
Nova's favorite color is dark.
Yeah, that is true.
What's
She
your
likes-
favorite color? Dark.
Yeah, she likes everything
That's
that's a
awesome.
dark color, but her favorite animal is unicorns, though. So she wants like black unicorns, which are very hard to find.
Oh my gosh. Precious.
So another question regarding you guys and where you are now, because I'm just fascinated by this again. Do you guys feel that you're here now, like you have a purpose? You know, there's a purpose that you have in life now. Yes, it's a job. Yes, you do it to make money, but at the same time, it's like now you're here for a reason. Now you're bringing life to these characters that touch millions all over the world, and people are looking and listening and hoping to hear you bring these characters to life. Do you feel like it's almost like there's a certain weight on your shoulders?
I have felt that way since the day I started. For me, it's always been like, this is my purpose on Earth, period. I'm like, when I'm finished doing Goku, then it's okay for me to die. Like, I've always been very committed like that. And I do feel, and as we've learned more about, when we first started Dragon Ball, there was a lot of Americanization of it, and then as Toei has gotten involved and really helping us guide, how they want to represent the brand and stuff, you become very aware of a mantle that you're carrying. And in fact, it just dawned on me in the last year that I'll perform. If someone wants to hear me do a Goku line, sometimes I'll do it. But one of the reasons I don't is I realize that every time I do the voice, even if I'm saying it within character, I'm invoking an entire IP in history of something I don't necessarily own, and that how I represent that, could be very tricky. And that's just something that's come into mind. Even if we're saying something that I know they would approve of, I'm still concerned about that. At the same time, I still would like to make people happy by occasionally performing properly. So I definitely feel like for me, it's since I started, it's been my whole reason for existing. It's been a heavy burden, but also an awesome gift. It's been like the best thing that's ever happened.
I think all performers look very differently on questions like that.
Yes.
And like for me, if I considered that my purpose in life, I would go crazy pretty quickly. I think that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself and a lot of pressure to put on fans or to give to fans. And a lot of power to hand over to somebody else. And my happiness in life. So no, I'm here to be the best mother and wife that I can, and then I get to do this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think
No, go ahead.
for me, like the reason that I think I'm still here doing this and that I've continued to, because somebody mentioned the ups and downs of the business, and it's not always smooth sailing, and we've all been doing this for 20 years, and is that like the thing that's always kept me motivated is I want to be a part of like telling a great story. I think story has impact, like in a huge way, all kinds of different stories. And the thing that I fell in love with, I think, early on, and still the thing that keeps me doing things is, what is the story that we're telling? How is it impacting people? So I think that's a bit of a purpose, I guess. And I just feel lucky that I get to do it still. Somebody mentioned, when I first started doing this, I saw it as another way to get to act, and I was doing all kinds of different things, but it was another way to get to do that. And it was anime, so it was cool, and I got to play different characters. I wasn't limited by what I looked like or anything like that in other, in stage and screen and all that. And then it slowly became, when I went to my first convention and I saw, and Chris alluded to this earlier, I saw because I had done this in a box, in isolation, and then I saw the impact that it had on people. And I was like, oh, this is actually something that like I've done that has impacted people. It kind of solidified with that storytelling driver that I have. So now to get to do a show like My Hero, the thing that makes me most nervous, just to kind of circle back to that question too, is how invested I am in it now. Because the more invested I am, the more I really, there's a certain level of investment in every character. I want to bring my all to everything. I can't do it any other way. But with this show, having talked to so many people and the impact that it has, I go when we start a new season, I'm like, I'm a little nervous just because I want it to be everything that it can. I remember someone coming up to me and saying, oh man, I'm so glad you guys did the sports festival arc, that it was good, because that's a really important thing, and we were just scared that it was gonna fall flat and not be what it, so that makes me nervous. I'm like, oh god, people are thinking that.
What happened to you last week? You came in the booth and somebody had told you, or fans had told you about a funny moment that was in the episode.
Oh, right.
And you were like, okay, so this is they've been told about it, so I want it to be really funny.
Right.
Like you were pre-nervous.
Right.
Which is a thing that social media has granted us.
Yes, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, I just feel a responsibility to it.
But do you I get nervous like that too, but then you shut it out because you gotta get the cooks out of the kitchen and do your thing.
I mean, we've all, exactly. Like, at one point, then you turn it on and you try to do it and you work it out and make it happen.
Well, let me ask you this, and I'm gonna take over. Let me ask you this. So, the way I came to understand the impact of meeting people who freak out when, you've done a good job or you do a vocal performance is thinking about my artistic heroes and how I've bumped into a few of my, and realizing, okay, so wait, if this is, like I bumped into Journey at the airport once and I lost my shit. And I'm a massive Rush fan. And so I'm like, okay, so this is how that feels for me. And then I put myself in that person's shoes and I'm like, wow, that really helped me understand.
Right.
Because I didn't quite get it. To me, it's just my job. And when you become one with the character, you're just like, yeah, that's what I do.
Right, yeah.
But then to understand that impact is extraordinarily gratifying for us. Thank you, by the way. It's such an amazing thing to have someone respond to you emotionally. Every time I hear a crowd, I hear, we emotionally affected us tremendously. Like Nathan Pyle's scream. I break it down into scientific whatever. But I just wonder if you have I'm curious about anyone here on the panel, who your heroes are, and who artistically. That's where I'm getting at. Who artistically affects you in that way, like you might affect someone who loves, what you're doing.
I found out that Lily Allen, the singer, is going to be at a convention with me in 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
So I'm big into music, so if I were to meet Lizzo, I would die.
Oh yeah.
I'm done. Beyonce, die. Just dead on the floor.
I'm scared of Beyonce.
But also, as far as an actor, I think of people like Lily Tomlin was a huge influence. I know a lot of you youngsters are like, who's that? But she's awesome. And Carol Burnett, people like that. But I agree with you. And I think that too, like talking to Ron, my fiance, and trying to explain to him, because he didn't understand. Like, why do fans freak out? Like, it's the animation. You're not the animation. I'm like, okay, let me sit you down, mister. I know nothing about anime. And I explained to him, I'm like, you have to understand that because these are anime characters, they're not tangible people. The next closest thing to meeting that character is meeting the Japanese voice, right? Well, the Japanese voices very rarely come over here because it's very expensive to bring Japanese voice actors here. So the second best is the dub. So when these guys come meet us, it's the closest they're going to get to meeting that anime character.
Right.
And so it's not necessarily they're excited to see Chris, Sean, Colleen, David, Monica. It's like, oh my gosh, All Might.
Speak
Oh
for
my gosh,
yourself.
go. Oh my gosh, go. See you. And so explaining that to him, you know, and also there's a different aspect too, to go back to the questions you had asked about being, you know, feeling the weight. There is definitely a weight there. And I think a lot of it has to do too with when we started doing conventions, the dynamic of the audience at conventions was totally different. It was usually much older crowds. There was a lot of cursing. People would drink on panels. Well, now, because there are so many young people, we realize that we're now role models as well as actors. So there's a whole other level to that has been added that didn't exist when we first started that you have to be aware of. Because if I say something that somebody takes negatively, that could affect them for the rest of their lives.
That's the mantle. That's the tricky part.
It's
you know?
waiting.
And for me, it's a control issue because it's like I want to be who I am, but then I feel like if I'm a role model now, do I have to behave how you want me to meet your vision of a role model?
You still
Is
be
how,
you.
well, that's why I get confused about it. You know, as a person.
You're a great role model.
Thank you.
Just be you.
I remember going to my first con with you. My first con was soccer con.
That's right.
And I was there with you because we were there for kitty grade. And she was already Monica Real. And so, like, she had a line out the door. And nobody knew who I was. So I was there, like, playing, I was making up games, like I was as a waiter at Rainforest Cafe. I was making up games and playing with any fan that would deign to come and, like, sit with talk with me. And people would be coming out going, you look bored, so I was just gonna come say hi, you're so sweet. And then I remember going to one of those dinners where it's a VIP dinner and you sit at a table and then the fans will come and fill in the rest of the table and talk to you. They have since changed, but at that time it was a very empty table, and we threw butterballs at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those fights.
I have a
There were-
tendency
yeah,
to
there's
throw
photos of
food.
those. Yeah, there was food fights. I think so.
I like food fights, y'all.
You just see their mouth open.
Very different dynamic.
I will tell you this. I mean, I just talked about being a role model, and now I'm going to teach you this, so I don't know what that says. But if you're ever in a food fight, the best thing you can ever use are refrigerated butter balls, like, you know, the little fancy balls, because you put it in your hand, and your body heat will melt it just enough that when you throw it, it will still stay a nice round ball, but when it hits the person that you're trying to hit, it's melted enough that it will splat.
It's the original Minetta balls. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you, by the way. But we do have to cut it now, unfortunately, everybody. These lovely people have more places to go.
We're going to be out there signing, right? So we going on
Yeah.
now?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, we're going to be
You
out
can
there
definitely
signing.
go catch them. Ask them more questions. They'll be here all weekend. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
By the way, this was sparkling water. I did